little fun doing it, a little enthusiasm.
That's right, baby, enthusiasm.
For more than a century, this theater has reopened each autumn with all the thunder of a Wagnerian epic. Rolled out in full color with the grandeur of another Mussorgsky exhibition. The play is the same. The choreography varies, but the real difference in this drama is in the players. This is a story about some of the players who have walked across the great stage at the Pennsylvania State University, who have picked up a gauntlet week after week, and more often than not, made it a trophy. This is the Rose Bowl, one of the great stages for the drama of college football, and where a large part of Penn State Nittany Lion history had its beginning. 1923, the Nittany Lions' very first bowl game was here in Pasadena, and it was the first game played at what is today's location of the Rose Bowl. These are stories of Penn State football reaching from the Rose Bowl of 1923 through the Rose Bowl of 1995. In this book, it's the people, the players, who are the story. I would like to take you beyond 1923 for a moment, if I might, to tell you about two very special players. The very first Penn State All-American came over from Youngstown. This lad was bigger, stronger, and taller than his teammates, and they called him Mother Dunn. His mom would have preferred William T., which was what she called him, but he went on to become a fine physician and lived most of his life on Maui. Then there was Levi Lorenzo Lamb, who played 9 seasons of college football, 2 at California Normal, 3 at Grove City, and 4 at Penn State. Obviously, they were not burdened with all of today's rules back in the 19-teens. There's a wonderful book about Nittany Lions football history written by Ridge Riley, who may have been the Lions' biggest fan. Ridge documents that Lamb was killed in the First World War, but is remembered through an alumni fund established in 1953. Now to 1923 and the Rose Bowl game, a 14-3 loss to Southern California. There was a quick, agile lad at running back named of Harry E. Wilson, who was named All-American by Walter Camp. Mr. Camp, the only writer doing that sort of thing back then. Well, after Penn State, Harry Wilson went off to the U.S. Military Academy, where he played 4 more years and was named All-American a second time. I don't know if Walter forgot or what. There is a very good reason why Penn State came to be called Linebacker U in college football. Under Rip Engel and Joe Paterno in particular, the linebackers have played a major role in the defense.
When I finally realized we were going to have to do a couple of things a little differently defensively, and then we put together what was a combination of what they were using. Johnny Ray, I think, was using a split 6 kind of defense with the tackles turned in, with the 2 inside linebackers. I didn't quite like exactly what he was doing, but I liked some of the things. So we went to an up front set. We had 4 down guys, 4 linebackers, and 3 deep, as opposed to what we have today. So we needed a lot of linebackers. So we could go out and recruit a kid and say, hey, look, if you want to be a linebacker, you got more chances to play here than you would maybe in an Oklahoma team where the outside guys aren't involved. That was number 1. And then number 2, we had a very unusual coach here by the name of Dan Radakovich, who probably has been responsible for more modern-day techniques than any other single coach coaching today. And Danny had played linebacker for us at about 180 pounds and played center. He had done his graduate work here in business, and I had put him on the staff. And he developed techniques, and he taught linebacking play that was really unique at that time. And then all of a sudden, you know, he had the Hams, we had those kinds of kids playing. So then people, nothing succeeds like success, and pretty soon it was, hey, you want to go to Penn State? And then Howard Cosell got on the wagon and started calling us, linebacker you. Howard was trying to help me out. He's another good Brooklyn boy. And so we kind of caught on, and then it made it easy for us to recruit him.
A dozen Nittany Lions have been named All-American linebackers, and at least another dozen could have been. No one typified the role of defensive quarterback more than middle linebacker Brian Gelsheiser in the 1994 march through the undefeated season and through the Rose Bowl. There is no question these bell-ringing linebackers have made that a glamour position in college football, but it is the truth of life. Has been, and will remain so, that it's the big people who hunker down in the trenches that dictate where the road turns.
10 Miami at their own 20-yard line after the missed field goal. On first down, Toretta's back, but Lubin Fatty is all over him. He takes him down at the 13-yard line for a loss of 7.
Again, All-Americans abound. And since day one of the professional football leagues, it's been hard to find a roster without a Nittany Lion defensive lineman on it. Two of the very best at the collegiate level played together on the two undefeated teams of 1968 and 69. Tackles Mike Reed, number 68, and a big fellow with a perfect name of Steve Smear, number 76. Mike Reed was a music major, excelled in his profession, played the piano. The opposition felt that Mr. Smear played their drum. With all those big people searching and destroying, some pretty exciting things happened down the field, too. Neil Smith was an All-American safety on the 69 team. He was a walk-on, but who is still in the record books with 10 interceptions that season. Pete Harris was another All-American safety, also had 10 interceptions in 1978. And then there was the bongo beat the DBs put on the Miami Hurricanes receivers in the 1987 Fiesta Bowl, the one that brought the second national championship to Penn State. The Canes receivers paid dearly that night, and it was that which ultimately was the difference in the game. Defense and kicking game will give you field position, and if you don't have a truckload of turnovers, you ought to win most of your games. Now, having been in broadcasting of college football for more than 4 decades, I don't know how many times I have had offensive linemen come up to me and say, "How about it? Give us a little pub." Well, you ought to know that if you're going to get in the down position in two-platoon football, the way they play the game today, is to be sure that you are a card-carrying member of the Society of the Anonymous. But the television replay has done much to lessen this inequity, and it is still a revelation sometimes to the casual viewer just what the big uglies contribute to all of this whoopee. Now you know why the running backs and the quarterbacks have banquets for their big buddies up front. And the big people from the unbeaten 94 team were really something to watch, paving the highway for the most prolific offense in Penn State history. setting 10 school records, 6 Big Ten conference records, and leading the nation in 3 offensive categories. Obviously, the people who benefit the most from this kind of behavior from the offensive linemen would be the running backs. And there have been so many great ones. Let's start with Lenny Moore and watch the parade. There has been just one Heisman Trophy winner, despite all these great runners, John Cappelletti in 1973. 1,522 yards on 286 carries for 17 touchdowns. The Lions were 12-0. I asked Coach Joe Paterno about the scarcity of Heisman winners at Penn State amongst all these thoroughbreds.
I think it's a combination of things, and we've never started the season off saying, hey, we're going to work to get a guy a Heisman Trophy. And I've always felt, hey, if you want to be a Heisman Trophy winner, you go out, you play your game, and if you're good enough, it happens. And if you're lucky, it'll happen.
Well, through the 70s, across the 80s, and into the 90s every season, there have been great running backs. Over the years, Rogel, Moore, Cockman, Campbell, Pittman, Mitchell, Harris, Cappelletti, Suey, Gooman, Kurt Warner, who is the career leader, Dozier, Thomas, Carter, and there are more are waiting for a chance. Those have been the hammers. Next, we have a look at the sharp end of the blade, the receivers. These are the shadows who flicker across the field, uncalled until it's time for the big play. O.J. McDuffie is the career leader at wide receiver with 125 receptions for 1,988 yards and 16 touchdowns, playing 1988 through 1992. Kenny Jackson caught 109 passes for 2,006 yards and 25 career touchdowns. Scott Fitzke, 1975 through 78, averaged better than 19 yards per catch. 1982, Greg Garrity made the catch in the Sugar Bowl that won a national championship. And then there are a couple of big fellows who are pretty big in the catching business. Ted Kwolek, 86 catches, averaging better than 15 yards per reception. That's a tight end who also blocked. And number 81, the big destroyer, Kyle Brady, who finished his collegiate career in the '95 Rose Bowl. 27 receptions his senior season, and a full stack of pancakes from his blocking. And there is Bobby Ingram, who became the first wide receiver to gain more than 1,000 yards in a season at Penn State, including the Rose Bowl. 57 catches for 1,081 yards and a season left. Teamed with Freddie Scott, these are two of the best in the country. And finally, the man who pulls the trigger, the quarterback, the man who must lead, according to offensive coordinator Fran Getter.
He's got to be the guy. And, you know, even in our recruiting, many times we have had opportunities to recruit maybe what appears to be a fantastic athlete at quarterback who's got the greatest arm you've ever seen in that kind of thing. And I think we are more concerned in our quarterback at Penn State with the intangibles, and that is the physical and mental toughness and definitely the leadership capabilities, because we always say we're giving that guy our football team. That's the guy we're giving it to. And Joe has used that in a negative sense sometimes when we're talking about recruiting or this, that, and he said, you think I'm going to give him our football team right now? He's not ready, or that's not the kind of guy I want to give this team to. So that is the key for us. We've got to have a guy, not so much a super #1 draft pick quarterback, as much as a great leader who's got physical and mental toughness and pay the price.
You've had that very thing happen around here too, where Joe didn't want to give the team to a particular quarterback.
That's exactly right. Yeah. Exactly.
He
may have been the better athlete. But didn't have the intangibles.
Well, the man who just left, one of the best ever, Kerry Collins, consensus All-American, 6'5", 235. Completed a lot of passes after shrugging off would-be tacklers. Todd Blackledge, the quarterback of the first Nittany Lions team to be voted national champions. A 3-year starter, 1980 through the '83 Sugar Bowl, when the Lions marched through Georgia. Tony Sacca, another big tough guy. A 4-year starter at quarterback, 1988 through 1992, the career passing leader, 5,869 yards, 401 completions. Also in the all-time career passing yardage, Chuck Fusino, who came so close to that national title in 1978 and the '79 Sugar Bowl. There was the steady fellow who was at the trigger position for 2 seasons, 1986 being the year of the national title win over Miami, John Schaefer. And there was a fellow who moved from defensive back to offense and started for 2 seasons, 1971 and '72. 21 wins and 3 losses. John Hufnagel. Not bad for a guy who was almost a safety. When Joe Paterno took over as head coach in 1966, Tom Sherman had been the starting quarterback. And the '67 season was a very good one. starting the string of events that led to successive undefeated seasons in 1968 and 69. But it was Chuck Burkhart who quarterbacked those teams. Not terribly fancy, but he was a leader, and he obviously got the job done. 22 straight wins. Ain't bad. This parade of quarterbacks and success goes a long way back. But as much as anybody, it was Rich Lucas who stepped up in the late 50s and helped get the postseason bowl business into high gear. Rich came back to live and work at Penn State when his playing days were done. Former defensive lineman Bob White, another who stayed.
There's a whole other side of the university, an entirely different side of State College that Bob White is getting a chance to enjoy, that even a lot of my former teammates don't have an opportunity to enjoy. Because unfortunately they come here for that 4 or 5 year stretch. They're devoting their time to football, to the classroom, whatever time's left to their social activities with their friends. And there really is another aspect to State College that a lot of my former teammates really don't get to enjoy. And now in my role as an employee here at the university, I see it in a whole different light. And it's nice being in the background and watching these other young players come in here hungry, wanting to prove themselves, wanting to do a good job. That's fun for me to watch that.
And All-American Ian Bob Meitinger on what he got out of playing the game at Penn State.
Stepping stone to everything. I was able, and I was fortunate enough to go to San Diego. I met my wife there. I received my law degree from the University of San Diego. And I make my living in State College. David Engel, Rip Engel's grandson, works with me. And just the thrill of competition, being part of the game, has helped me tremendously. I think it gives you a proper mental attitude in a lot of areas, and a certain confidence.
3, 2, 1, Penn State!
Without the players and the coaches and the legions, it would be just a cacophonous montage, a bellowing sound reaching across the ages and going nowhere in particular. But when you blend the people here in Happy Valley, I get the feeling they all have a pretty good plan in mind.
The vast majority of the people who have played football at Penn State have come from the local region. Pennsylvania, obviously, but New Jersey, New York, Ohio, West Virginia, close enough so their families can drive to see them play. And I think that's very important. And without saying a lot about it, those who have and will in the future conduct football affairs for the Nittany Lions understand quite clearly, thank you, that big, fast people beat little, fast people.
For more than a century, these strapping lads have played the game of football, shedding the beginning colors of pink and black, evolving to the now famous blue and white. They have come from Bowlesburg, Greensburg, Mechanicsburg, Harrisburg, and Pittsburgh. Every city, town, village, and hamlet represented on the rosters of Nittany Lion football. They have helped paint the vivid mural that has so many unique characteristics. Remember them well and fondly when you choose to shout out one more time for all to hear, we are Penn State.